My name is Subia, and I'm going to talk to you about longboards. Not specifically skateboards, but specifically longboards, because I don't know any tricks and I don't want to hurt myself. I'm going to talk about the different parts, how they're put together, and then why you should at least think about having a longboard, or at least some kind of alternative transportation as opposed to a car. So the first part that we have is the wheel, invented a no, I'm kidding. But we have the wheel, and what makes it actually roll are things called bearings. And inside the bearing, this is what they look like. You have small little balls in there, and I think there's about like 8 or 9, I can't quite be sure, but they're in there, and they spin, and it lets the wheel actually spin for a longer period of time. So it'll spin for, when I got the bearings new, they were about 3 minutes, but now that they're old and I've used them for a while, they've got some dirt in it, so they go for about 1 minute. I'm going to pass around sort of some bearings so that everybody can see them. And there are different types of bearings. If you get some of the more expensive ones, like the ones I have right now are $50, but I bought those maybe about 4 years ago, and they've lasted me. They're not getting much slower than 3 minutes, but about a minute. So they still get me from one place to another. So the next thing I'm going to be talking about is sort of the wheel itself. So there are different materials that you can get. You can get it comes in a harder material. So there's things called 78, this one's 78A. That basically means that it's going to be a little squishier, and it's going to give you more traction on the ground, so that you're not going to necessarily need to push as long, so you can kind of get more grip. And there are ones which you can get if you're going downhill, so for a long period of time, if you're going downhill and you're going at higher speeds, you want to get some harder wheels so that you can brake. Usually when you're braking, you might see people putting their foot down and just hearing like a scraping noise. Well, when you're braking and you're going downhill at like maybe 60 miles an hour, you have a different pair of wheels which are rounder on the edges. These ones aren't those type of wheels, these ones are more of a flat edge. But they'll actually turn their board like this, and they'll slide on those wheels. And those wheels, if you were to slide on this, you would probably kick that way, so you would basically slide, and then you would probably fall over. So these wheels aren't necessarily for that type of downhill acceleration. But these wheels are good for long distances. The squishier it is, the easier you're going to be able to bounce rocks off your wheel. So if you catch a rock in between your wheel basically just stops, and forward momentum basically launches you forward. So these wheels, them being squishier, they can roll over rocks easier. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is the bushing. This is what actually lets the wheel, or at least lets the trucks, these things right here, these metal parts, these are the trucks. The bushing inside of the truck actually lets you turn. So if you put pressure down when you're standing on it, you can actually turn it. Without that, you wouldn't have that smooth of a turn, and your wheel would end up staying like so. So you can see it's kind of just twisted on there. This next part is called the hanger, and this is just part of the truck. The bottom part of the truck is called the base plate. This particular board, this is called a drop-through board. So you can see instead of the trucks actually being mounted on the bottom of it, they're mounted through the board. So it gives you a lower center of mass so that you can go faster and you can go for a longer distance. Usually they come with 2 bushings. So you have one that goes between this hanger, and you can have another one on the bottom. So it gives you extra cushion so that you can turn bigger. And as far as the board itself, it can be made out of a bunch of different materials. Typically it's just any kind of wood. This one I'm not sure what it's made out of, but I think it's partly bamboo wood, but different brands make them out of different woods. The nice part about having a board is you don't have to really buy all of the pieces all in one. You can always buy a separate board, and these trucks will necessarily fit in any drop through, or you can buy extra hardware, and the hardware is just the nuts and bolts. You can buy different hardware so that you can screw it onto any kind of board. So it can be just like just flat on top of it. It doesn't have to be drop through, so it doesn't have to have holes inside of it. And why you should get a board is because everybody has a car nowadays, or at least most of you have cars, but for those who don't have cars, it's a really efficient way of getting around the place from point A to point B. You can get any kind of bearings. They range from $10, which is really cheap, or you can get more expensive ones like these ones, which are, they're called Bone Swiss. You can get these for $50 and they'll last you a long time, so in my case, around 3 years. You don't really have to maintain it a lot. It can get dirt in there, but usually the bearings, just them spinning, gets rid of any dirt inside of there. So you really don't have to like clean it out. If you want to, you can, but it's not necessary. And it saves a lot of money on gas. So you might spend like $20 to even like $60, $70 if you have a truck with bad fuel efficiency. But you can always get from point A to point B pretty cheaply. And you don't have to pick, it can be like for anybody, you can pick whatever style you want to. You don't have to necessarily pick the same board. There are many different styles. So I think everybody should get a longboard just because of the efficiency, and it's really more, it can even be a lifestyle. There's a lot of people who get together, they can even collect longboards or just using a bunch of different boards and you get your hands kind of dirty. But that's why I wanted to talk to you about longboards. Thank you.